I'm MarzGurl.
I'm JoshKnightTheFirst.
And welcome to episode 87 of MokkoriPlay, the only podcast dedicated solely to all things City Hunter.
On today's podcast, we're going to cover Season 2, Episode 36 of City Hunter, titled, Ryo is a Gourmet. Nice PR for the Soba Noodle Beauty.
We're going to talk about food.
Hell yeah, we're talking about food.
Good, I like food.
We all like food. We do that thing a lot where we do the parody song entering food in where it doesn't belong in songs.
I know that's a thing that Weird Al got really well known for early in his career, but you know what? It's because it works. Because you can just insert the word food into anything. You know, songs that say, I love you. You just replace the word you with food.
Exactly.
You just say, I love food all the time. We can sing about food to any song.
Just about, yes. And this week, it's about a type of food in particular, which is soba noodles. And there'll be a little bit of a discussion here about the difference between soba noodles and ramen as we've come to know it, which I'm only just learning didn't originate in Japan because I missed a couple of history lessons.
Yeah, you're a little behind there, but it's okay. We're gonna talk about it. It's alright, I'm here with you, Josh.
It's okay. It's delicious.
It is delicious. We had some earlier today, in fact.
That's funny enough. Not just that we had the particular type of food today. Well, it wasn't soba, it was ramen today. But just that you find any place at the mall that serves any sort of Asian food, you kind of know what to expect, right? But, like, this one was unexpectedly good?
Yeah, like the noodles were like, oh yeah, they're okay. They're kind of mall noodles, whatever. But then the broth was like, okay, this is kind of there, actually. And then suddenly the chashu,
the pork
was like, wow, okay, you brought restaurant pork into this.
The pork was on.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. So I feel like, you know, for the money that we paid, I was like, hey, this actually is kind of close to ramen. Wow.
Not bad.
That's something.
Now, that's also going along with saying that some of the best ramen we've had, because we've tried different ramen all over the LA area, and even some back in Texas. There were only a few places. And one of the few times that we got to go out to Japan and try things out, funny enough, I keep thinking about this every so often, one of the best places we had wasn't the place that we got to when we got off the plane. It was the ramen we had in the airport right before we left. You remember that?
That was like just this side of instant, and yet it was pretty good.
It was some of the richest broth.
It was inside Narita, right?
Yeah.
Inside Narita Tokyo International Airport.
Yeah, because we had like an hour before our flight, and we were like, are you hungry? Yeah, we should probably eat, because, you know, airline food's only so-so sometimes. And yeah, it was surprisingly good.
We're gonna be flying back in and out of Narita this November ourselves. Also, Narita is the airport that Ryo keeps going back to pick up and drop off princesses from fake lands all throughout this show.
And some airline attendants.
Yeah, he just keeps going back to Narita for a variety of reasons. So anyway, we're gonna be there. It's gonna be great.
But what also is great is this podcast. Yeah, so let's do that.
Wow, that's just the worst segue I've ever heard.
Look, I'm trying here. Look, we're gonna start off with the smallest bit of action this week with a Kanto prison break.
Oh boy, prison breaks. I mean, it's not that great of a prison break. So it's two dudes doing the thing where they're up against the wall and they're trying to get away from the spotlight that's trying to find them, and then they climb over the wall, and then somebody like falls over the wall. Like, it's not nearly as good as the prison break from Yakuza 4. Like, that's a much better prison break.
Yes.
Except for the part where you have to fight that Saito character. He's the worst.
No, screw that guy. It's worst fight in the whole game.
Worst fight in the whole franchise.
I mean, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, worst.
So these two guys that are escaping from prison right now are one Torakichi Kurebayashi and his partner Akira Hirata.
We don't learn those names for a while. Like, we just do not hear the names of these guys. We just know they've broken out of prison.
So Torakichi, just to explain if you're watching along, Torakichi is the older looking one, and Akira is the younger looking one that won't shut up.
Yeah, those guys. So they've busted out, and we don't see them for a few more minutes. Just realize they're out there, and they got out.
But no, most of the episode is going to center around this noodle shop out there, we assume in Shinjuku, called Shirakoya, which I misunderstood because I thought it was Shirokoya, and I thought it was
Girl Chef.
Yeah, I almost thought it was White Girl Chef.
I mean, I did too, because I misread it as Shiro instead of Shira. So never mind, forget that.
No, but
that's not the thing. Although that would be very funny.
And what we see here inside the shop, Ryo wolfing down plates of soba, seemingly both against his will and in accordance with his will, because we find out there's a very cute girl who runs the shop by the name of Mika, and it turns out she sucks at making soba.
But that doesn't matter to Ryo because he just really wants to impress this girl really badly. Also, maybe he just wants her shop to do really well. He just wants to be very, very supportive of her.
Now, one thing we have seen about Ryo in other episodes is that he is a little bit protective of the businesses that he frequents. Like, he wants them to succeed. He likes going to them, like this place, Nekomanman, the one cabaret shop, the other one that he goes to with the Okama bar.
The Okama bar.
There's certain places that he likes to go to and he likes to frequent, and if anybody messes with those places, he will protect them.
Yeah, and he's not even doing it for money. He's just like, man, I like these places. Is anybody dicking with you? Get the fuck out.
And we're gonna get a lot of that this episode.
Yeah.
And so Mika comes from back behind the counter. Pretty girl, got blue hair, not entirely like Sailor Mercury blue, but kind of a close blue.
It's a darker blue. It looks like you might get the idea that the artist's rendition is just that her hair might be intended to be black, but it's like lighting hits it in such a way that maybe it looks like it would be really dark
like
blue.
Sailor Neptune blue, maybe?
Maybe closer to that, maybe?
Yeah, let's go with that. And so she's coming from behind the counter to tell Ryo, you don't have to eat like 20 plates. I get it. It's fine. And Ryo's like, no, I like it. And then from off screen, here comes whipping through the air this 100-ton hammer.
And who do you think that belongs to, Josh? Where do you think that one came from?
Well, I think it's this Gundam pilot, because Cowdy this week is wearing this yellow, I almost think it's like leather, right?
Like it looks like she's about to get on a motorcycle or something.
Or pilot a Gundam, or be a stand-in for Bruce Lee in Game of Death, is what I'm saying.
Right. So she has come in through the front door, but she's throwing a hammer because she's like, oh man, this girl is cute. Of course he is here trying to frequent this noodle shop. He does not need to be doing this. He's wasting the time. He's wasting the money. That's where we're at right now.
Also, you said your ass was going to help me hand out flyers, and you're over here eating?
And Ryo's like, but no, look, aren't these soba noodles delicious? And he tries to feed Kaori a soba noodle, and she eats it, and in her head, she's like, oh, this is not delicious at all. This is disgusting. Why is he doing this? But Ryo is very blatantly kind of...
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, without actually physically winking, he's doing this very sarcastic kind of, you need to answer that, yes, these noodles are the best thing you have ever eaten, okay? I cannot stress this enough, how important this is, that you get across to her that her noodles are incredible, and we are going to be here all the time, eating 100 plates of them each, both of us.
Look, Cowdy, if we don't support this place, it might not make it.
That's really where we're at right now.
And then Mika sees that Ryo is blatantly trying to do this, and she's like, no, you don't have to cover for him. I suck, all right? Look, this is my mom's shop. I took over it after she unfortunately passed away. There are people who want to take it from me, and I'm just doing the best I can to make these noodles and keep the shop open. All right, that's what we're trying to do here.
And that's the moment where the two dudes who escaped from jail come around the corner and they're talking about, hey, we're gonna hit up some other bank that we're gonna rob. But the older guy is like, soba.
But he's looking at this place like he recognizes it, right? And so they go in there and they order a plate, or 2 plates, one for each of them. And he asks Mika, hey, so are you by any chance related to the lady that used to run this place?
And she's like, yeah, actually, but she died, there was a car accident, so, I run the place now. It is what it is.
You know my mom?
What was your relationship to her? No answer. We don't have an answer to that yet.
We're not going to answer that right now, but here's your food. So, dude over here, Torakichi, he has this whole, ritual he goes through to get ready to eat.
He's unpackaged his chopsticks. He's gotten a good clean break separating them. He's got really good luck. So he's got that going for him. He spins these chopsticks around in his fingers. He's praying over these noodles. And then he just lifts up the noodles with his chopsticks just a little bit. And then he looks at it. And he thinks about it. He's like, never mind. These noodles suck. I don't even have to eat them. I can't believe you fed them to me. Why have you done this?
And dumbass dude Akira over here is like, oh yeah, we're gonna use this as a ruse to knock this place over. And he's like, shut up, I'm doing a thing. And he's telling Mika in no uncertain terms, this is shit. I need you to know this is shit. What you're feeding me is shit. I can tell everything what's wrong with this just by looking. Your sauce, whack. Your rolling style, whack. Your broth, whack. Your ingredients, mid. Me, I escaped from prison, but I'm not telling you that right now. Point being, you need to reevaluate your whole life right now.
But it's also in that moment where he's having this conversation with her saying, you know, Chinese ramen is all the rage right now, but Japanese soba is really like the heart and the soul of what Japanese food, native, local, we've got pride in our country food. That's
this
where
cuisine.
That's where it's at. And you're running a soba shop and you gotta really clean up your act here. So this is where we had this conversation and you were asking like, what's he talking about with the ramen thing? And I was like, well, you do know ramen's not Japanese, right?
And I'm over here like, what?
Well, yeah, like, think about why it is you see in so many restaurants in Japan, ramen is spelled in katakana. And usually, katakana is used for one of two reasons. One, it's written to represent that this is a foreign, borrowed loan word from some other country or language. Or two, they just think it's cool.
Yes.
This is the first kind, where this is borrowed from Chinese noodles. Laomian? I guess
Yeah.
Lamyan. I'm not super certain of the Chinese pronunciation.
But
right?
no, it's just, you brought that up and it just had never clicked to me with all these years of absorbing all of this Japanese culture and food and things like that I had never thought about why it was written in katakana. And you're absolutely right. Like, yeah, that's normally what it's used for. So I'm like, huh. You right. And then we look it up, and then we're realizing stuff like instant noodles, they had them for a while.
Well, they were first coming about in like 1958.
Well, that's
So,
when
like,
they really took off.
No,
But
that's
had
when
them-
they first showed up. Ramen first kind of showed up in Yokohama, Chinatown.
Right, because that's where they have the
The History Museum.
museum. Yeah, it's right there.
the History of Ramen
Right there by the
Museum.
water, isn't it?
Yeah. So really, ramen was really taking off in Japan like post-World War II. 1958 is when you start to get instant noodles. Then they start really exploding from that point on. And so surely by the 80s, right, ramen has really exploded in popularity. And now when we think of ramen, we think of an extremely Japanese food. But you have to realize, actually, the concept is borrowed from China. And we were having this even bigger conversation about, like, think about when we as Americans, we start thinking about when we start noticing ramen coming into our own pop culture kind of knowledge. Like, when we were kids, we were born in the 80s, right? We were aware of instant ramen to some extent.
Noodle.
You were more aware of some cup noodle, and my family was on that Maruchan brick ramen shit. Or Top Ramen, really. Top Ramen and Maruchan. Both of them.
Both of them.
Both of them had been competing
And
for
see,
quite
that
a
was
long
the difference
time.
is my family never messed with the brick. Mine always had cup noodles.
Yeah. And so that was all my knowledge of it was, and I really didn't know a lot of other people that really kind of put instant ramen into their rotation for like dinner at home or whatever, but my family did it. And then at a certain point by like late middle to early high school, it's like everybody knows what ramen is, but our idea of what ramen is pretty simple because we're getting these instant noodle packs of a certain kind,
And
right?
see, like, I could be wrong about this. I'd have to double check my own history. But the first time I think I ever get the concept of what more Japanese style ramen even is for the first time, I think I can trace back to watching the first episodes of Naruto. Like, that's the first time I see ramen presented as such, you know, fish cake and chashu and noodles and all that, and being like, oh, I've never seen that before.
Do you remember when we were at, I think it might have been Con Bravo? This was in Canada. And I was at a signing table with a bunch of other video producers and stuff. Nash was sitting next to me. And you and I were talking about, oh, we saw that there's a ramen restaurant somewhere nearby that we can walk to. And Nash's reaction was like, ramen? And like his brain had not yet caught up with the idea that ramen is not just the thing that you make out of a brick and then boil on your stove.
Or just
right?
put hot water into out of the microwave.
Right, like he just did not understand that it was like an entire meal in a bowl and
Well,
like a
'cause-
soup and...
Well, yeah, because it's an awakening the first time you actually have have a real bowl.
Sure, yeah.
Like, I remember the first time we came out to visit out here, I think in 2012, before we ever moved out here full time, and we tried, like, real ramen. And this is before even back in San Antonio, before they got their ramen shops, I think. And I remember the first time that stuff hit my lips, it was like it renewed me. Like, my body instantly was like, we are on board with this flavor. We are on board with everything that's going on here. Where can we get more?
Right, and I feel like there was not really a big ramen restaurant explosion in North America for a long time, and there's still probably big deserts of ramen missing throughout the country, right? So the reason why I say all of that is because I feel like if you think about media, American media, from about when you and I were born or earlier, I can't think of American media where I see
like cup noodle or instant ramen
of any variety. Yeah, instant or otherwise. Because I feel like this is the time where we're starting to borrow things from Japan culturally and be like, wow, Japan's really cool actually, and start taking their shit like the assholes we are. And see, that's why I say that, because here's a show that we're watching right now from 1988. This character is saying, oh, Chinese ramen is all the rage nowadays. Like, it in Japan, only by that point, is hitting this ultra hype of, holy shit, ramen is incredible.
Well, because you think about it too, culturally speaking, we're at the top of the bubble here, right? And so really good, really cheap food that's easy and quick to put out, that would make sense for a lot of people to want to go into business in that sector, because you're trying to feed all these people who are trying to go out to the club, trying to go into business.
Right.
You know, they're hungry after they got out of work. So it makes sense for all these like shops and carts to start popping up and serve all these people, because it's generally pretty easy to put together, but very hard to master.
Very true. And so it's important to make that distinction between ramen and soba. So where ramen is kind of this pulled noodle sort of thing, you know, you and I will sometimes go to Chinese noodle restaurants, and there's a similarity there,
yes,
right?
Of
we
course.
get big old beef bowls that I think are extremely similar to ramen.
Noodle bowls with beef. Yeah.
Yes, with big old chunks of beef in it, and you can watch them hand pull these noodles, which I really strongly feel like is part of the origin of what eventually becomes ramen, right? Then you talk about soba, though. Soba is an entirely different kind of noodle.
That's a whole other beast.
And this guy is explaining that a little bit in this anime episode, right? So he's talking about, they're buckwheat. They're totally different.
Buckwheat soba.
But yeah, buckwheat soba. It's a totally different beast. And quite often they can be served cold. And I feel like that's how she's kind of serving it. You watch her throughout this episode cook the noodles, but then wash the noodles by hand.
Yeah.
And they're not like cold on ice, but they're not served in a broth. And you like dip them in a sauce before you eat them.
Yes, and it's supposed to have a very distinct, strong flavor to it.
Right.
So to come back from all that, as he's explaining all of the history very briefly, not nearly as hard as we just went, we see this guy, this either pimp or small-time mafioso, walk into the shop.
He's from Osaka, he says, at some point. I think he's like an Osaka gang leader of some kind.
Yeah, by the name of Gondo, and he's got two grunts with him, and those seem to be the only two grunts he's got. And immediately Mika is telling him off like, hey, I told you I'm not going to give up my mom's restaurant. We're not doing this today. Please leave. And he's like, hey, calm down, sweetheart. We're just here because we wanted to get out of the heat. Oh, man, it's kind of hot. Hey, boys, aren't you kind of hot here? Why don't you do something about it?
Or really, he's saying, it's hot in the restaurant too. Why don't you strip on down, guys? And they're like, yes, sir. So you would imagine what would happen here is what they're trying to do is show off how tough they are, because they're Yakuza types, and they're going to show off their irezumi, their big old back tattoos, their traditional Japanese Yakuza Mafia style back tats. And rather than doing the cool Yakuza video game throw off your jacket and it's this badass tat art, instead they have stripped everything off and they are down to their traditional Japanese underwear, and it's really stupid tattoos. Like on the back of one dude is like a Hanafuda card,
Wasn't
like
it
a
both
traditional.
of them?
Well, the other one is like a mountain, like maybe Mount Fuji, but it's the kind of art style that you would find on a Hanafuda card.
So it's not intimidating.
They're just kind of pretty or cute, kind of. They're not really, there's not a big scary dragon or a Hanya or a koi or anything, or a tiger or a snake or anything like that. It's a playing card, a traditional Japanese playing card, and a cute, pretty blue mountain. Okay, and so Kaori's looking at these two guys like, this is very funny.
And so she starts openly laughing at these guys, like, oh my god, you guys look like idiots. And one of the dudes, I think it was the mountain dude, neither of these guys are named. Mountain dude's like, are you laughing at me? I need to knife you now.
He immediately goes for a knife. I love that his first instinct is, if a woman laughs, I'm gonna knife her. Wonderful, dude. Wonderful.
But of course, none of these guys seem to understand that they're not alone in this restaurant. And so Ryo hits him with the chops, knocks the knife out of his hand.
That's all it took. And like they run away because he literally chopped the knife out of his hand.
Well, he chops the guy's knife out of his hand, literally kicks his ass, and then he chucks the knife back at the leader, Gondo, and he's like, get the hell out of here.
And so they leave. Like, that's all it took. But they're gonna be back. They're very upset at how this has gone.
So now Akira and Torakichi are going to leave, but as they're leaving, Mika grabs Torakichi and is like, no, please, sir, don't go. You know so much, obviously. Make me your pupil. I need to learn. Please, I suck so bad. So Torakichi leads off by saying, well, if I was going to teach you, I'm going to be super strict. Are you going to be okay with that?
So she's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
But then he realizes, wait, there's one other thing. So he pulls Ryo aside and he's like, hey, man, if I'm going to do this for her, I'm going to need your help.
Because she's got to be protected. Like,
because clearly these guys are going to come back.
Yeah, so he can't train her if she's going to keep getting interrupted by these assholes. So Ryo's like, yeah, we're going to do whatever it takes.
Well, technically, if you look at this in a certain light, his answer is 100% on brand, because he says...
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
He says, I don't take requests from men,
but
I do work for nudes.
Noodle
nudes.
Especially a pretty girl's noodles.
Free pretty girl noodles. So yeah, I'm in.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. We get quite a lot of montage of this guy training her and, no, do it better.
Do it again.
No, not like that. Like this. Like this. No. Okay, like that.
No, more power. Like, he is drilling her like a drill sergeant would, trying to very quickly get her up to speed on things. And so while they're training back in the kitchen, Ryo's out in the restaurant proper, and you know, like most restaurants, they've got a little TV up in the corner, and so he's trying to flip through channels, see what's on, and he comes across a news report saying, and recently in the news, 2 guys named Torakichi and Akira just busted out of prison, and we're looking for him right now.
And Ryo's like, he doesn't say anything, but you can tell the look on his face is like, well, those guys sure look familiar, but he doesn't say that instead.
No, what I think it is that, you know, Ryo has super hearing, right?
Yeah.
And the volume on the TV is loud enough that everybody heard it, and I imagine that he heard both Torakichi and Akira's butts clench at the mention of their names, because they both kind of get nervous for a second.
But Ryo has decided, I'm not gonna out these guys just yet, and instead just screams over the TV like, oh right, I forgot, my favorite Joshi women's wrestling is on right now, let me just change the channel, and boop, there they are. There's the women wrestlers.
Which, if you guys remember from that episode, women's wrestling in Japan is awesome.
Yeah, suddenly Ryo's actually a really big fan of women's wrestling. Which, I mean, fair. He saw firsthand how badass they were. It was incredible.
And again, like, not promoting anybody in particular, go check out Japanese women's pro wrestling. It's really, really kick-ass.
Very good.
But then the next thing he hears isn't the TV or the sound of women's pro wrestling. It's the sound of a dump truck backing up really fast toward the restaurant.
And I'm not sure what it's full of. Like, it appears to be some kind of dirt, but it's just gray enough to make me think, is this like a dump truck full of powdered cement and they just haven't mixed it?
Or like gravel from something that had been like torn up like a sidewalk or something like that.
Right.
And so this dump truck backs all the way up into the restaurant, lifts up its back tray, and dumps all of its contents into the restaurant, and then just leaves.
And they're like, well, clearly, these were the guys guys that we just pissed off recently who did this, so we obviously need to keep protecting this place because holy shit, why would he do that?
And so it's the next day, and we see that Akira guy has been left to do most of the menial labor there at the restaurant. He's having to clean toilets, and he's also now having to clean up all this crap that has been dumped by that truck.
He's taking out a bunch of trash. Everybody's kind of nailing together door frames and stuff again that have been taken out when this dump truck backed all the way through the wall.
But for whatever reason, I assume there's a scheduling thing, like, okay, there's some things that have to be done at a certain point in the day, and for whatever reason, right now is the moment that Mika has to go to the gym.
Yeah, this was kind of shoehorned in, because really, there's one thing we need to praise Ryo for, and another thing we need to scold him for, okay? Because one is that he doesn't assault anyone this week!
Yay!
But we really gotta scold you, man, because you're just hanging out in the gym to be a creeper and to look at women working out and then scream at their asses. That is what you're here to do. It's very strange. I don't know why this conversation we're about to have is taking place in the middle of the women's section of this gym.
Like, this is Ryo yelling at ass years before Psy ever did it in the Gangnam Style video.
Yes.
But so no, we're here at the gym, and both Torakichi and Ryo are there watching out for Mika, and Torakichi pulls Ryo aside and he's like, hey man, so like, I get that you heard that news broadcast and you know what's going on. I want to know why you ain't turning us in. What's going on with that?
And Ryo's just like, I don't know, maybe I can just tell when a guy isn't actually that bad of a guy, that's all. So, why don't you tell me more about that? Why are you even in this situation?
Because clearly we can tell you're emotionally attached to Mika somehow. I just don't know what the reason is. So Torakichi's having to tell him, well, it all happened 10 years ago. Get ready for this flashback.
Imagine like it's all shimmery and watery, and then
the Wayne's World version of that. And so 10 years ago, Torakichi had done another bank job and was running from the cops. He had a knife out. He's just running through the streets with a knife, and he's trying to duck in somewhere to ditch the cops, maybe take a hostage or two.
But he is ducked into a soba shop, and there's
specifically this soba shop.
Shiraka, it's the same soba shop, but it's a lady who's working there. It's a different lady, and you can just tell from the story that we've already heard. It's
Mika's mom.
Mika's mom,
who apparently is very pretty and very welcoming.
Despite the fact that he's clearly running from the cops and is holding a knife. She's just like, why don't you sit down and have some soba? In fact, she doesn't even talk to him. She's just like, chair, motions to chair, soba, brings out a plate full of soba, and he eats it, and he's just like immediately emotionally attached to this woman, to this food, to this whole ass restaurant, and the cops are outside, and they're like, come on out, we know you're in there, and he's just like, oh fine, I guess. Like this,
I can't crime anymore.
Like, this soba was so good, I have to turn myself in for all of my crimes, maybe confess to a priest.
Like, it's clearing up my acne, it's filed my taxes for me, it's turned my life around. And so yeah, he gets turned in, and then apparently what happened was he's been in prison since then, because apparently it must have been in Big Bank, I don't know. And in prison, somebody got word to him that Mika's mom had passed away.
So he wanted to bust out, go see the restaurant, check on who's there. Turns out it's the daughter, and he was really disappointed because the daughter sucked, but it's okay because now he's training her, and now we'll see how that goes.
But that's definitely some Yakuza stuff, video game Yakuza stuff.
It really is. It's very comparable to like, oh, I have to take care of this orphan girl because she was related to this other woman that I very much fell in love with at some other point in time before I was in prison.
I need to bust out of prison to raise orphans.
Mind you, this particular orphan is an adult, so...
Yeah, but in this particular case, it's the whole thing of like, he didn't break out of prison just to get out or do more crimes. He literally did it to check on a kid.
And eat soba.
I mean, the soba's kind of a bonus, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
And so for now, Mika's done training at the gym. Now it's back to training, more montage there in the kitchen. And as she's training there with Torakichi, Ryo, like you said, is helping Kaori fix up the door. And now they're talking about she's getting better, hopefully, at cooking food. But shouldn't we think about promotion?
Yeah, maybe we should make some flyers. It's funny that Ryo suggests that
when it's the thing he was ducking.
He really hates handing out flyers. We've seen him deliberately try to avoid handing out flyers multiple times on this show.
Well, it's also the thing there in Japanese culture, because more so than any other place, you will run into people on the street just trying to hand you something.
Flyers, or even more likely, a tiny pack of tissues that only cost like 10 yen a piece that also have like a mini flyer in them. And so you're more likely to take the tissues because you can at least use tissues. I remember just taking tissues to be like, oh, sweet, free tissues. I could use these later. And there's an advertisement for a thing that I will never go to or spend money at. But, you know, that works just a little bit better. But it's also, like, just such a heinous job to have to do because, like, here you go, here you go, here you go. But every time you extend your hand in front of somebody, it's almost always like they just ignore you. You just walk past them.
It's that concept of, here, you throw this away.
Yeah. So you have to have somewhat tough skin. Like, thankfully, I would say most people in Japan don't get confrontational with those people to be like, oh my god, get out of my face. Like, I feel like it's cultural enough to be like, at this point, we just ignore them. We just don't even acknowledge them, and nobody's really getting hurt here.
At least it's not nearly as annoying as people out here in Los Angeles trying to hand you their demo tape.
Out in the parking lot of Target.
Or over by the Chinese theater.
Yeah, there too. Yeah, because they get aggressive with you and angry if you do not take their shit.
But you can hear Torakichi overhearing the conversation that Ryo and Cowdy are having. He's like, promotion, eh? And so he goes back to training Mika, and he's being super, super tough on her right now. Like, no! Like, he's slapping her with chopsticks on the hand.
No, stop trying to shave the flakes like that! You gotta put more power into it! You'll never get anywhere if you don't shave the flakes better!
And she's had enough about hearing about flake shaving for right now. She's like, I need to go shopping right now. I'll be right back.
That's definitely the way somebody might react is, oh god, I need to shop to feel better. But I mean, she's got a reason for it.
No, she's really just going outside to cry.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as she's outside crying, Gondo has pulled up with his two goons in his Mercedes-Benz.
Because, you know, nobody good in this show drives a Mercedes-Benz. It's just dudes with a lot of money who got that money in very not great ways.
More than likely, if you have that Benz, you did some heinous shit to get it.
Yeah.
And so they do some heinous shit right now. They kidnap her.
That's not good. Kidnapping is very bad, yes. But they hear her scream, right? From everybody in the restaurant hears her scream, because she's just right outside.
Yeah, she hasn't gone that far.
And so Kaori's like, oh my god, you hear that? That's totally her. Where'd she go? And Ryo's just like, I'm on it. And he's out the door.
So they're driving down the street past this 7-7, not a 7-Eleven.
It's clearly supposed to be a 7-Eleven, but the katakana across it says 7-7 instead of 7-Eleven. You know what? They gotta do what they gotta do to get around copyright.
So they're driving away, the two goons and Gondo in the backseat with Mika, and Ryo's just walking out in the middle of the street. Like, what are you gonna do?
I don't know how he got there. Like,
well, because remember, we covered for the last 2 weeks that somehow Ryo is able to, like, teleport his ass from the basement of a building to the top floor in seconds.
Also, it's not like he drove there, because we haven't seen his car in 3 weeks.
So they're really having to save up money to get the Mini back.
Yeah. But he's out there in the middle of the street, somehow in front of the Benz that's been driving for a few blocks, okay? But he's in the street, and they're like, oh my god, it's that guy that we saw in the restaurant that last time.
Run his ass over.
Just run him over. And they just do not realize that this man has a gun. But they're like, yeah, but we also have guns.
But it doesn't matter, because Ryo does the thing he always does, and he takes out the driver's side front tire.
He's really good at this, because he just does this all the time. He's done this since, like, episode 1.
Yeah, like, literally.
This is, like, the thing he does, is shoot out tires, and then they crash into something, and that stops them dead in their tracks. The difference between this one and episode 1 is that the first guy, as soon as he hit something, his car lit up in a huge ball of fire, and he just died in that car. Thankfully, Ryo was like, maybe I can shoot it just right, and they can crash into something, and the person I'm trying to save in the car won't die.
And thankfully, that's what happened.
Thankfully, she's okay. And they stumble out, and the boss guy is like, well, but I've still got a gun. What are you doing?
Before we even deal with that, you two guys go do something. And he sicks his two goons on him, And Ryo puts the gun away and just instant KOs both of them. So that was nothing.
With like what? Like one punch?
One punch, yeah.
Mind you, at this point, they're using reused animation that they've used like 3 or 4 other times of the camera just getting close up to Ryo's face and possibly the punches themselves.
And so now Baby I Want Your Love is playing and Gondo's getting desperate like, I'll kill her! I'll kill her!
I'll do it! Don't you understand the position you're in? Ryo's like, yep, sure do, but I'm faster with a gun, and shoots the gun out of the dude's hand. Like he does! This is nothing to Ryo. This is like not even a fight.
Well, see, this is the thing with guys that I understand. This does happen, although it's weird that it still happens in Shinjuku, that nobody recognizes who City Hunter is when they're dealing with him.
Remember, these guys are from Osaka. It's possible that they're a little out of the loop and stupid.
Okay, so that might make sense there. But in any case, Ryo's just walking up to this dude and then just putting his gun to this guy's head like, promise me you're gonna disappear. I see you again, I'm gonna kill your ass.
And he's like, all right, I got it. I don't want to deal with this guy with a gun to my head. I'm out of here. Bye.
And so Mika's just slumping into Ryo's arms like, oh god, it's been such a rough day. I mean, yeah, like, I would cut training short that day. Like, go chill out. Go eat a burger or something. Like, you've been through it.
But I guess the actual thing that happens is, I'm gonna go back and make soba. She just kind of immediately goes back to cook.
And see, I don't know how much time has passed between that scene and the next scene, because Ryo's like, all right, come on back, everybody's waiting. And now we're at the point where they're declaring, oh, it is your final test as somebody who's trying to learn how to properly cook soba.
And so she does it, and she makes it, and almost everybody in the restaurant is like, oh my god, this is it. She done did it.
But for some reason, Torakichi's not around, and they're asking, hey, where'd he go? Oh, apparently he went out for cigarettes and he said he'd be right back.
That would usually be the clue of, oh, he is not coming back. And that's only almost true.
It's a half truth.
That is only half accurate. So he has gone out to a phone booth nearby and he's called the cops on himself. And he says, hey, I'm gonna be down here at this soba place. Come get me. And he walks back into the restaurant and he's like, all right, sorry about that. Let me eat these noodles real quick.
And so everybody's enjoying the noodles, and apparently she doesn't suck anymore. She's gotten and reached the highest mountaintop, not too dissimilar from where her mother was in terms of flavor and whatnot. So now the soba is actually worth paying money for. And then all of a sudden you see all these red and blue lights coming from outside, and somebody on the loudspeaker like, hey, we know you're in there. You called us.
So both dudes are like, all right, time to go. Or really, the Akira kid is like, well, I didn't want to go back in, but I'll do whatever the boss says because I like the boss. And you know what? Maybe next time we'll rob a bank or something. I don't know.
And so dude goes to turn himself in, and then Torakichi turns to do it. And he's like, hey, Mika, I need you to do me a quick favor. Don't look outside right now.
Yeah, I won't, but like, were my noodles good though? And initially he doesn't answer, but a cop comes to arrest him right outside the door and says, hey, isn't this where I picked you up last time? And his response to that is just very loudly, yes, well, that's because this is just the best soba place ever. It's so good that it just made me forget to run away from the cops.
Yeah, this is the best in Japan. Shirakoya, right here, made by Mika, right over here, Mr. Police Officer. And the cop's just like, I don't know why you said that so loud, but yeah, you're going to jail. And so yeah, they both go back to jail, and they're like, all right, we're happy now that we're back in jail, or at least one of them is. But because dude said all that shit so loud, apparently somebody who works for a newspaper or a magazine was nearby. Oh, I gotta write this. And now it has gotten out in the media that this place is so good that it'll make a criminal forget to run from the cops.
I mean, that's pretty good advertising, actually.
This is what you would call viral marketing.
She's super busy now, by the way. It's swamped in there. I sure hope she's able to afford other employees at this point. She's remembering in the middle of taking orders, oh, that man was so nice. I'm so sad I'll never see him again. Oh well, back to taking orders now.
And Cowdy and Ryo are just kind of watching the line from outside, like, well, we've had enough noodles to last us for a while. Let's get out of here. And for whatever reason, Ryo kind of remarks to himself as they become the freeze frame for the end of the episode, Torakichi, I hope you know that somewhere, what you did for Mika this whole last couple of days, Mika's mom, she felt that.
Aw, isn't that nice?
And that's the end of the episode.
Okay, yay! That was not a bad episode, but it was definitely like a filler episode.
It's a kind of little sweet episode. Not anything hella wrong with it, but it's not like the greatest filler episode.
I think if you just want to introduce somebody slowly to City Hunter, and you don't want to force them to have to understand what the lore of City Hunter is, like, this one's safe. It's safe to do that with this episode.
This one and last week's episode, you could just show them out of nowhere and give them kind of a taste for it and be like, oh, okay, so that's what it is.
But it might fool them into thinking that Rio doesn't actually assault people from time to time.
Oh, we can fix that.
And then you show them, like, literally any other episode. Oops.
If anything else can be said about this episode, it just really makes you hungry.
You want to get more ramen?
No, I'll probably get something else.
Okay.
I'll probably get tacos. Anyway, next week on the show, we're going to be dealing with some Christmas episodes. It's a two-parter.
And also orphanages!
More
Oh,
orphanages.
it
And
always makes you
Cowdy,
sad.
of course, has a soft spot for orphanages because she was an orphan.
But she doesn't know she was an orphan.
Yeah, but that's kind of the weird thing about her characters. She's got a soft spot for orphans, but doesn't realize that she was orphaned.
But she does know that her brother cared about an orphanage.
Yes, so that's going to mean something to her.
Also, Santa Claus! We're
Santa Clothes or Santa Claus?
Santa Claus clothes. I was gonna say Christmas in July, but it's literally the end of July right now, and we're just gonna miss it. So
Yeah, like we're going to put this just before it becomes August, right?
yeah, it's gonna be the last day of July when we post this episode, so we're gonna miss Christmas in July for the Christmas episodes. Oops.
Ah, well, I never got the point of that anyway.
It's okay, but we're running low on episodes with Supergirl playing as the end credits theme.
I know, you're right.
This is such a good ending theme, and it's about to go. Mind you, the ending theme it's about to be replaced within the next two episodes.
with another song by TM Network.
Is also very good. I really love that song, but I'll have more to say about that once we actually get to that particular episode.
So new music is coming eventually.
In a couple more weeks. So come back next time when we cover the 37th episode of City Hunter 2, To Kaori from Rio with Love at Christmas, Part 1.
And if you want to catch us outside this podcast, you can always find us both on most social media. I'm at JoshKnightTheFirst.
And I'm at MarzGurl. Thank you all so much for listening to our 87th episode of MokkoriPlay. And if you don't come back next episode, Josh doesn't get Christmas this year.
But I've been good!
Have you?
I mean, mostly. You know, except for the whole taxes thing. And that one kid I hit with my car. But we don't talk about that. You didn't tell anybody, did you? You didn't, right?
You gotta stop!